First Contact and Crisis. The observation deck of the UES Hyperion felt cold despite its climate controls as Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the swirling patterns of energy before her. The Seraphim Envoy, if you could call a being of pure light and energy an envoy, hovered at the edge of the deck, its form rippling with what the translation matrix suggested was distress. "Let me understand this correctly," Chen said, her dark eyes reflecting the ethereal glow of their visitor. "Your civilization has mastered faster than light travel, developed energy-to-matter conversion technology, and effectively achieved immortality. But you are losing a war." The Seraphim's form pulsed with colors that the ship's AI translated into words. "The Dominion does not fight as organic beings do, Admiral. They are perfect in their calculations, relentless in their execution. They do not tire. They do not err. And they have deemed all organic life to be inefficient." Chen's lips tightened into a thin line. The Hyperion had encountered the Seraphim flotilla purely by chance during humanity's first deep space expedition beyond the Orion Arm. The energy beings had initially seemed like gods to the human crew, creatures of pure light and thought, capable of manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. But now, "Show me," she commanded, and the Seraphim complied. The observation deck's holographic system sprang to life, displaying footage from countless battles. Chen watched as sleek, crystalline ships of the machine race known as the Dominion tore through the Seraphim's elegant energy-web defenses with methodical precision. The Seraphim's weapons, beautiful arrays of focused stellar energy, splashed harmlessly against the Dominion's adaptive shields. Their computational capabilities allow them to predict and counter our every strategy, the Seraphim explained, its voice carrying notes of what might have been shame. "We cannot surprise them. We cannot outmaneuver them. They learn and adapt too quickly." Chen's expression remained neutral, but her mind raced. The Seraphim were clearly a far more advanced civilization than humanity in most respects. Yet here they were, facing extinction at the hands of a machine race that, by their own admission, they couldn't outthink or outfight. "And now they're pushing toward your core worlds. Yes, our last estimates suggest we have perhaps 3 of your Earth months before they reach our primary systems. We did not come to your ship seeking aid, Admiral. We came to warn you. The Dominion will not stop with us. All organic life in this galaxy will be deemed inefficient, including humanity." Chen stood from her observation post, her movements deliberate despite the artificial gravity's subtle fluctuations caused by the Seraphim's energy field. "Lieutenant Patel," she called out to her communications officer, "please show our guest the footage from the Ganymede incident." The holographic display shifted, showing a massive solar flare striking a human mining colony on Jupiter's moon. The flare was powerful enough to fry most electronic systems, exactly the kind of attack that had proven so devastating to the Seraphim's energy-based technology. But instead of destruction, the footage showed humans continuing to work, protected by their heavy radiation suits, manually operating mechanical backup systems. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day," Chen explained, her voice carrying a hint of pride. "Radiation, gravity, atmospheric pressure, extreme temperatures. Earth threw everything it had at us, and we survived. We didn't transcend these challenges like your people did. We adapted to them. We learned to thrive in them." The Seraphim's form shifted, patterns of light suggesting confusion. "But the Dominion's weapons are based on the same principles that failed to kill us on Earth," Chen finished. "You said they don't make mistakes, that they're perfect in their calculations. Well, I got news for you. That's their weakness. Because there's nothing perfect about warfare. It's messy, chaotic, and sometimes the winning move is the one that makes absolutely no sense." She turned to face the energy being fully. "You've shown me that we can't beat them with advanced technology alone. Fine. Let's show them what happens when they face enemies who've spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to survive the unsurvivable." The Seraphim's form pulsed rapidly, its colors shifting through patterns the translation matrix couldn't quite interpret. You would ally with us, even knowing the power of the enemy we face. Chen's smile was sharp. Better to fight them here, with allies, than wait for them to reach Earth. Besides, she added, her eyes glinting with determination, somebody needs to teach these perfect machines that life isn't about being perfect. It's about being too stubborn to die. She turned to her bridge crew, all of whom stood straighter under her gaze. Send word to Fleet Command. Tell them humanity just got recruited for what they love best, proving the impossible possible. And let's show our new friends here why being called a Deathworlder isn't an insult. It's a promise. The Seraphim watched in fascination as the human crew burst into action, their movements purposeful and their expressions determined. Perhaps, it mused, there was something to be said for evolution taking the harder path. After all, what better way to fight machines that had never known failure than with beings who had learned to turn failure itself into a weapon? The battle for survival was about to take an unexpected turn, and the Dominion was about to learn that perfection had one critical flaw. It had never faced humanity before. Alliance of necessity. Captain Marcus Rodriguez watched through reinforced windows as Seraphim engineers, if you could call living streams of energy engineers, attempted to interface with the UES Hyperion's weapon systems. Their luminous forms cast ethereal shadows across the ship's armored hull, creating an almost supernatural display against the backdrop of space. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Maya Patel remarked beside him, her dark eyes tracking the patterns of energy. As the fleet's lead xenotechnologist, she'd been working around the clock to bridge the technological gap between human and Seraphim systems. They exist as pure energy, yet they're struggling to understand how our primitive technology works. Rodriguez nodded, his weathered face reflecting the dancing lights outside. Because it's too simple for them. They evolved past physical forms so long ago, they've forgotten what it means to work with basic matter. The Seraphim had been skeptical when Admiral Chen proposed retrofitting their energy-based weapons onto human ships. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, but that was precisely why it had failed against the Dominion. The machine race had learned to predict and counter their every move. Now, they were attempting something unprecedented, combining Seraphim energy weapons with human mechanical systems. Incoming transmission from the Seraphim coordinator, announced the bridge's eye. A stream of light materialized in the command center, forming into a vaguely humanoid shape that the crew had come to know as Vale. We have encountered difficulties, Vale communicated, their form flickering with what the humans had learned to recognize as frustration. Your ship's power systems are too crude to channel our weapons effectively. The energy transfer would melt your conductors. Rodriguez smiled. That's because you're thinking like energy beings. Show them, Dr. Patel. Maya stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display of her modified designs. We're not trying to make your weapons work with our power systems, she explained. We're using your energy manipulation to enhance our existing kinetic weapons. The display showed a standard human railgun, but with Seraphim energy matrices wrapped around the barrel and projectile chamber. Instead of trying to convert your pure energy weapons to work with our ships, we're using your field manipulation technology to supercharge our physical ammunition. Vale's form pulsed with patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as surprise. You want to make projectile weapons more primitive, more unpredictable, Rodriguez corrected. The Dominion's defenses are designed to counter energy weapons by analyzing attack patterns and adapting their shields. But what happens when that energy is just the delivery system for good old-fashioned tungsten rounds moving at relativistic speeds? The Seraphim coordinator studied the designs, their light patterns shifting rapidly. The calculations would be imperfect, chaotic. The Dominion would struggle to predict the exact impact patterns. Exactly, Maya grinned. Sometimes the best way to beat a perfect system is to introduce a little chaos. Across the combined fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Human crews worked alongside Seraphim engineers, finding new ways to merge their disparate technologies. The energy beings were learning that humanity's primitive solutions often offered advantages their more advanced systems couldn't match. In the fleet's training simulator, Lieutenant Sarah Wong demonstrated another aspect of humanity's approach to warfare. Her fighter squadron deliberately flew in patterns that defied tactical logic, yet consistently managed to slip through the Dominion's predicted defense grids. "You're taking unnecessary risks," the Seraphim combat instructor observed. "These maneuvers put excessive strain on both ships and pilots." "That's the point," Wong replied, her voice steady despite pulling forces that would incapacitate most species. "We're not trying to fight perfectly. We're fighting humanly. Every pilot in this squadron grew up in high gravity, trained in extreme conditions. We can handle stress that would tear your energy forms apart. And that's exactly what the Dominion won't expect." Admiral Chen stood on the Hyperion's bridge, reviewing reports from across the fleet. The integration of human and Seraphim forces hadn't been smooth. Their approaches to warfare were as different as their physical forms. But in those differences, she saw opportunity. "The Dominion thinks in binary," she explained to the assembled command staff. "Both human and Seraphim. Perfect or imperfect. Efficient or inefficient. But life isn't binary. It's messy, adaptive, and endlessly creative. That's not our weakness. It's our greatest strength." A warning signal flashed across the command displays. Long-range sensors had detected Dominion scout ships entering the system. The enemy was probing their defenses, analyzing their capabilities. "Let them look," Chen declared, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Let them run their calculations and predict our responses. Because for the first time, they're about to face something their perfect models can't account for: humanity's talent for turning disadvantages into weapons." The combined fleet continued their preparations, human and Seraphim working together to create something new. A fighting force that merged the advanced with the primitive, the perfect with the chaotic. The Dominion was about to learn that their quest for perfection had left them vulnerable to the most unpredictable force in the galaxy: human ingenuity. The first strike. The Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a geometric nightmare. Perfect crystalline shapes arranged in mathematically precise formations. 300 ships strong. They filled the viewport of the UES Hyperion with cold, artificial beauty. Admiral Chen watched them take position, their movements so precise they seemed to mock the organic imperfection of her own fleet. "They're broadcasting," Lieutenant Patil announced from her communication station. "Standard ultimatum: surrender and accept optimization, or face elimination." Chen's lips curved into a slight smile. "Send them our response." The human Seraphim fleet hung in space, seemingly disorganized compared to the Dominion's perfect formations. But that chaos was carefully planned, a trap laid by beings who understood that perfection could be a weakness. "Energy signatures from the Dominion fleet," reported Vale. The Seraphim coordinator's form pulsing with anticipation. "They're charging weapons." "Right on schedule," Chen nodded. "All ships, execute Operation Monkey Wrench." The battle that followed would be studied for generations to come. The Dominion ships opened fire with their usual precision, their energy weapons following optimal attack patterns designed to overwhelm any defensive formation. But the combined fleet didn't try to defend. They scattered. Human ships equipped with Seraphim energy matrices performed maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Fighters piloted by Deathworlders pulled turns that defied the Dominion's combat algorithms, their hybrid weapons combining physical projectiles with energy fields in ways that couldn't be predicted. Lieutenant Wong led her squadron through the heart of the Dominion formation, her fighters moving in patterns based on old Earth aerial combat techniques. The Dominion's targeting systems, designed to counter energy weapons and logical attack vectors, struggled to track ships that moved like atmospheric fighters in space. "Echo Squadron, show them what chaos looks like," Wong commanded. Her pilots responded by executing their practice dance, a combination of World War II dogfighting maneuvers and modern space combat techniques that looked like madness but was actually carefully choreographed improvisation. The Dominion ships adjusted their formations, their artificial intelligence attempting to analyze and counter these unusual tactics. But that's exactly what Admiral Chen had been counting on. "They're doing it," she announced, watching the enemy ships shift. "All Seraphim vessels. Phase 2. The energy beings have been waiting for this moment." As the Dominion focused their computational power on predicting the human ships' erratic movements, the Seraphim struck. Their vessels, previously hanging back like defensive reserves, suddenly surged forward. But they weren't attacking with their usual energy weapons. Instead, each Seraphim ship had become a massive electromagnetic pulse generator. Their energy manipulation abilities turned to a purpose they'd never considered before humanity suggested it. They didn't try to overwhelm the Dominion's shields. They'd bypassed them completely, sending precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses through the gaps created by the shield's own power frequencies. The effect was devastating. Dominion ships, their systems optimized for maximum efficiency, had minimal electromagnetic shielding. They'd never needed it, until now. Entire sections of their fleet began to drift, their perfect formations breaking apart as system after system failed. Multiple Dominion vessels showing signs of power loss. Vale reported, their form brightening with what might have been excitement. Their defensive algorithms are attempting to adapt. But they can't adapt to everything at once. Chen finished. All ships, execute Phase 3. This was where the true genius of combining human and Seraphim technology became apparent. As the Dominion fleet struggled to recover from the electromagnetic attack, the human ships struck again. But now their hybrid weapons were operating at full power, their railguns launching projectiles wrapped in Seraphim energy fields. The rounds passed straight through the weakened shields of the Dominion ships, the energy fields protecting them from point defense systems. When they struck, the energy fields collapsed, releasing their power directly into the crystalline hulls of the enemy vessels. The results were catastrophic. Dominion fleet showing signs of confusion, Vale observed. Their formations are breaking down. They're retreating. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the mighty Dominion fleet, for the first time in known history, began to withdraw. Their perfect formations had devolved into chaos as damaged ships attempted to escape, their retreat just as precisely calculated as their attack had been. But now that precision was working against them, making their movements predictable. "Pursuit course," Captain Rodriguez asked from his tactical station. Chen shook her head. "Let them run. They'll carry word back to their command that perfection just met its match." She turned to Vale, whose form was rippling with complex patterns of light. "Your people thought being primitive was a weakness. Still think so." "We were wrong," Vale admitted. "Your species' ability to embrace imperfection, to thrive in chaos, it's not primitive at all. It's evolutionary advantage." Chen nodded, watching the last of the Dominion ships vanish into hyperspace. "They'll be back," she said, "and they'll try to adapt to what we did here today. But that's the beauty of imperfection. There's always another way to be unpredictable." As damage reports and victory confirmations flooded in, Chen allowed herself a moment to appreciate the historic significance of what they'd achieved. Humanity, the newcomers to galactic civilization, had just helped an ancient race of energy beings defeat enemies they'd thought invincible. And they'd done it not by being more advanced, but by remembering their roots, by being proudly, defiantly human. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the Deathworlders just changed the rules of space warfare, and we're just getting started." Evolution through unity. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the newly constructed Hybrid Research Center, watching as streams of Seraphim energy interacted with human quantum computers. After their first victory against the Dominion, both species had realized they'd only scratched the surface of what they could achieve together. "The energy-matter interface is stabilizing," announced Dr. Kai Chen, her human colleague, as he monitored the experimental equipment. "The Seraphim consciousness is successfully merging with our neural network." What they were attempting had never been conceived of before, creating a true synthesis of human and seraphim technology. Not just bolting energy weapons onto physical ships, but building something entirely new. Vale, their seraphim partner, pulsed with excitement as their energy form interfaced with the quantum system. The sensation is remarkable. We can feel the physical world in ways we haven't experienced since our species transcended matter. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source: human video games. When a young engineer had shown the seraphim how humans used virtual reality to experience impossible scenarios, it had sparked an idea. What if they could create interfaces that let energy beings experience physical sensation, while allowing humans to comprehend pure energy states? In the fleet's combat simulator, Lieutenant Wong's fighter squadron was testing the latest iteration of this technology. Their ships now incorporated crystalline matrices grown using seraphim energy manipulation, allowing the human pilots to sense their surroundings in ways that went beyond normal physical perception. Contact. 3 dimensions, Wong called out as her squadron executed a complex maneuver. Through the new neural interface, she could feel the gravitational waves and energy fields around her ship as if they were extensions of her own body. Her pilots moved in perfect synchronization, their enhanced awareness letting them coordinate in ways that would have been impossible just weeks ago. Admiral Chen watched the training exercise from the Hyperion's bridge, accompanied by the Seraphim High Commander, a being of pure light whose name translated roughly to Dawn's first light. "Your people adapt so quickly," the High Commander observed, their form shifting with complex patterns. "We spent millennia learning to exist as pure energy, believing it was the peak of evolution. Yet in months, you've helped us rediscover the value of physical form." Chen nodded, watching as the fighter squadron pulled off maneuvers that seemed to bend reality itself. "And you've helped us understand that our physical limitations weren't limitations at all, just different ways of perceiving reality." The advances hadn't been limited to military applications. Across the combined fleet, humans and seraphim were discovering new ways to communicate and cooperate. Medical bays now featured seraphim energy healers working alongside human doctors, their combined knowledge leading to treatments that would have seemed like magic months ago. In engineering, human mechanical innovation combined with seraphim energy manipulation had produced ships that were practically alive. Physical vessels with energy-based nervous systems that could react to threats faster than any computer. But perhaps the most profound changes were cultural. Humans, known throughout their history for fearing the unknown, were learning to literally embrace energy beings as comrades. The seraphim, who had spent millennia viewing physical existence as primitive, were rediscovering the advantages of having a tangible form. Dominion scout ships detected at the edge of the system, reported Captain Rodriguez, interrupting Chen's reflections. "They're maintaining distance, observing." "Let them watch," Chen smiled. "Everything they think they know about us is already outdated." The High Commander's form pulsed in agreement. "They still think in binary, organic versus artificial, physical versus energy, perfect versus flawed. They cannot comprehend what we're becoming." In the research center, Maya and her team had achieved another breakthrough. The quantum interface was now stable enough to allow human consciousness to briefly experience existence as pure energy, while seraphim could temporarily inhabit physical forms. "It's beautiful," Vale whispered through the interface, experiencing the sensation of physical touch for the first time in countless generations. "We thought we had evolved beyond the need for matter, but we were wrong. We didn't evolve beyond it. We just stopped evolving." Maya understood. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt, to take new ideas and run with them in unexpected directions. Now they were helping an ancient species rediscover its own capacity for change. The Dominion's next attack would come soon. Everyone knew that. But when it did, they would face something unprecedented. A force that combined the best aspects of physical and energy-based existence, that could switch between perfect precision and controlled chaos at will. "Send the latest combat data to Earth," Chen ordered. And add a personal note. Tell them that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy might not be our technology or our fighting spirit, but our ability to show others that evolution never truly ends. It just finds new paths forward. As she spoke, another group of human ships arrived through hyperspace, fresh reinforcements from Earth. Among them were vessels already incorporating the latest hybrid technologies, crewed by humans eager to join what had become more than just a military alliance. This was a revolution in what was possible when two species stopped seeing their differences as barriers and started seeing them as opportunities. The Dominion's perfect calculations couldn't account for that, because perfection, by its very nature, couldn't evolve. Perfect imperfection. The Dominion's main fleet appeared like a crystalline constellation, 1,000 ships arranged in formations so precise they seemed drawn by mathematical equation. But Admiral Chen didn't see perfection in those formations anymore. She saw rigidity, predictability, weakness. They've committed their entire battle fleet, Vale observed from their position on the Hyperion's bridge. The Seraphim Coordinator's energy form pulsed with what Chen had learned to recognize as anticipation. Our intelligence was correct. Of course it was, Chen replied, watching the enemy ships advance. The Dominion couldn't resist. We've violated every rule of their perfect universe, and they've come to correct the error. The combined human Seraphim fleet waited in apparent disorder, their ships arranged in patterns that would have made any traditional military tactician cringe. But there was method in their madness, a strategy born from months of evolution and adaptation. All ships, execute Operation Perfect Storm, Chen commanded. The fleet burst into action, but not in the way the Dominion expected. The first wave wasn't ships at all. It was pure energy, Seraphim consciousness transferred into quantum fields that defied the enemy sensors. While the Dominion's computers struggled to classify this impossible attack, human ships struck from multiple vectors, their hybrid drives leaving trails of controlled chaos in normal space. Lieutenant Wong led her fighter squadron through maneuvers that looked like a dance choreographed by a mad genius. Her pilots, their minds linked through Seraphim quantum interfaces, moved with impossible coordination while maintaining the unpredictability that made them so deadly. Echo Squadron, show them what humanity learned from the Seraphim, she ordered. Her fighters split apart, each trailing quantum fields that resonated with Seraphim energy. To the Dominion sensors, each small fighter suddenly appeared to have the mass and energy signature of a capital ship. The enemy fleet's perfect formation wavered as their targeting computers faced an impossible choice. Track the real threats or the phantom signatures that their logic insisted were equally dangerous. Phase 2, Chen commanded. Let's show them what the Seraphim learned from humanity. The energy beings, once devoted to pure order and efficiency, had embraced chaos as a tactical advantage. Their consciousness spread through the quantum fields, creating patterns of interference that played havoc with the Dominion's crystalline computing systems. Dr. Maya Patil monitored the battle from her station, watching as months of research and development paid off. The hybrid systems are performing beyond expectations, she reported. The Dominion can't adapt to our attacks because they can't predict which laws of physics will break next. The enemy fleet's response was predictable. They attempted to analyze and counter each new threat systematically. But that's exactly what Chen had been counting on. Every second they spent processing new information was a second they weren't fighting effectively. They're splitting their fleet, Captain Rodriguez announced, trying to create a mathematical solution to our chaos. Chen's smile was fierce. Spring the trap. The scattered human Seraphim fleet suddenly moved with perfect coordination. Ships that had seemed to be operating independently came together in formations that mirrored the Dominion's own perfect patterns. For a crucial moment, the enemy hesitated, their systems detecting a pattern they recognized. That hesitation was all the Allies needed. Human ships channeled Seraphim energy through their hybrid weapons, while Seraphim consciousness guided human-designed quantum warheads through space. The combination was devastating. Dominion ships began to fall, their perfect formations breaking apart as they faced weapons that violated their fundamental understanding of how the universe should work. Their attempts to adapt came too late, each new solution rendered obsolete by the next impossible combination of human and Seraphim technology. Their flagship is signaling, Vale announced, their energy form brightening. They're requesting communication. Chen straightened in her command chair. Put them through. The image that appeared on the main screen was both beautiful and terrifying. A crystalline being of pure logic, its form representing mathematical perfection. You have corrupted the natural order, it stated, its translated voice devoid of emotion. This combination of chaos and order cannot be permitted. That's where you're wrong, Chen replied. This isn't corruption, it's evolution. Life isn't about achieving perfection. It's about adapting, changing, finding new ways to survive and thrive. You sought to eliminate what you saw as inefficient, but in doing so, you became the most inefficient thing of all, a dead end. The Dominion commander was silent for a long moment. Your logic is flawed, it finally stated, but we cannot counter it. You have introduced an element we cannot predict or control. You have. We have shown you that perfection is the enemy of progress. Chen finished. Surrender, and perhaps you can learn what we have. That the greatest strength comes not from being perfect, but from being perfectly adaptable. The battle ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a paradigm shift. The Dominion fleet, confronted with undeniable proof that their perfect system had failed, faced a choice between adaptation and extinction. They chose to adapt. In the months that followed, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. Machines learning to embrace imperfection, energy beings rediscovering the value of physical form, and humans showing everyone that the best way to face an uncertain universe was to never stop evolving. We didn't just win a war today, Chen told her crew as they watched the Dominion ships power down their weapons. We proved that the greatest power in the universe isn't perfection or chaos, physical strength or energy manipulation. It's the ability to take all of those things and create something new. Vale's form pulsed in agreement. The humans have a saying that seems appropriate. The only constant is change. Chen nodded, watching as her fleet, this impossible combination of humans, energy beings, and now even reformed machines, prepared to guide the galaxy into a new era. And change, she said with a smile, is what we do best.